You're listening to a main feed episode. Go to patreon.com/Celtic Ligers where €5 a month gets you weekly full-length episodes, stray bonus content and access to the back catalogue. Also helps cover hosting and gives us money for sweeties. Thank you. Celtic Ligers.
Recorded 19th of December 2023.
All right.
Welcome
to... go on.
Celtic Ligers.
Yeah, Christmas episode. Christmas special.
Yeah, when is Christmas?
Christmas is next Monday.
I told you in work, the board of directors rang up my boss and they were like, just so you know, this year you're no longer allowed to give a present or any sort of bonus to the workers.
Is there any reason for that?
No.
I mean, like, any stupid reason?
No.
Like a kind of dumb tax
the reason
thing
they gave is
like...
they were like, it's illegal for charities to give a present at Christmas.
But but there's ways that you can kind of... Like, it's also like, who's going to catch up on that?
But it's just, that's also just not true. It's just, that's a lie.
Is it? Okay.
So, yeah.
I think the thing that was most egregious, though, where I was like, well, did you get a Christmas party? And it's like, no.
Yeah, that's
like
also...
a Christmas party is like one of those things where it's like, fuck, I gotta go to this. But it's like, I don't know.
It's a
like
sign of respect, isn't it?
I know. I have I have an animation studio with like 2 other people. Mm-hmm. And now we didn't do it this year, but we have in the past had Christmas parties. You know?
Yeah. You wouldn't allow it this year.
No, this year it was 2...
This year it's illegal.
You know what I mean? The cost of living, it's creeping up. It's everybody's, I got a taxi the other day out to the, yesterday, not the other day, to the dentist, okay?
Yeah.
And it was like...
it's like magic.
No, do you know that, like, it was one of those rare times where you're in a taxi and then the taxi driver starts talking about politics and you're like... Preach, you know what I mean?
You're like, mate, I have a podcast. You just drive the car.
But he's like, he was just going like,
he was like, what's with all these migrants? And you're like, preach.
Yes.
For the people in the back.
I'm
pretty
sure he was a migrant. He was,
did you say that?
A POC, sub-Saharan African migrant. So I don't know what to say about that. I just like, I think it's like, did you ever see that like meme? It's not a meme, it's like a little show, but then like an online web series, and this woman is like...
So I'm hanging out in my apartment, I've got some candles lit, I'm feeling good, I've had 8 glasses of wine.
Gotcha.
And down in the street I hear these 2 beautiful boys playing. They're skateboarding or doing flips or something. And one of them looks up at me and has the most beautiful face I've ever seen. Asian.
Beautiful.
And you know how I like a little Asian. You remember my date with Len?
Very well.
The point is I say, woohoo boys, and they sort of look. The one who isn't Asian is black.
You don't have to, this could be a colorblind story.
I want to fill it with color.
Yeah, but I'm just saying it's like there's a race problem in Hollywood right now.
And in America, a racism problem.
I agree.
Well, this story isn't racist, it's diverse. If everyone in it was white, then it would be racist.
I really wish I'd recorded it, is the only thing, just because I really loved hearing his voice and the stuff that he was complaining about, where he's like, I would have had 15 fares normally. Nobody's out this Christmas. And so I was like, why do you think that is? And he goes, it's probably Ukraine, okay? And I was like getting ready. I was like, oh boy, here we go. And then he just says like, cost of living ramping up. Food is getting more expensive. The US is on in these endless conquests around the world. They just love war and imperialism. I was like, huh? And then he just like said, people just don't have the money to splash out in a taxi to head somewhere. Or, if they do, they're squeezing every penny to try and make Christmas last,
Yeah.
And then I was like, I started talking about like America and like, I kind of risked it. I was like, all the money that they're giving to like Israel. And then he just lit up and he was like, all the billions, they're pumping in there. Okay. And he just says, I can't remember. He's like, you see pictures, they're supposed to be this great nation. Everybody wants to go there. Pictures of people on the street. Why don't you take some of that money? Why don't you give it to people who are homeless? What type of legacy is it? We're only around for like 80 years, okay? Mm-hmm. Like, and you're saying, oh, I just want to be remembered for like war and like killing people. Why not have yourself be remembered for putting a roof over somebody's head? It's like we're all the same at the end. We're all just going to die, and we're going to be like the same as anybody else. And these people think that they're going to be important because they go off and kill a bunch of people.
Yeah.
I was just like nodding the whole time. It was a good time, anyway.
Yeah, that sounds good.
I mean, like that sounds okay, but just imagine if it's like he's an incredibly thick accent, and I'm only picking up every like second word. It was an amazing. I don't know. I just really loved it. It's diverse, like the meme. Like I was telling you, it's not racist. Okay,
he's not from
if
here,
you enjoy,
but that's fine.
I enjoyed his voice and what he was saying and his accent. Okay. I'm probably going to cut all of this.
Why? It was good.
No, it was good. It was a good riff.
What a world, eh?
What a world. Yeah, the drugs are kicking in.
Good.
Just maybe it'll just like, I have to listen to these episodes to edit them to just try and, give them a little flavor or something.
Yeah.
Just to make them feel like.
Put a nice apology at the start.
What's this? Are you calling me out?
I'm just joking, but
yeah. But I knew it. I know exactly who ratted to you as well. All right.
What did you say? I actually didn't listen to it.
I actually kind of regretted doing it like immediately after it, but like basically, I was listening to myself just kind of stammering and struggling with a lot of things, and I was like, I want to add like the appropriate context to our discussion about most journalists in Ireland thinking that they're left-leaning. So what I tried to do is I tried to be like, it's one of the most batshit things, because I was convinced that I wasn't under the effects of a bunch of painkillers and the after effects of surgery. So it's like a bit of me talking to Zainab, and it was like originally like 10 minutes long, and I chopped it down to 5 minutes, or like not 5 minutes, but like 2 or 3 minutes. And it's just me trying to define what left and right wing mean as far as I'm aware with my limited knowledge.
Right.
And then I felt really bad because I was like, I should have just waited until next week and talked about it with James, because that wasn't the appropriate thing to do. But
I don't mind. It really doesn't. I just don't want you feeling like worried about anything you say. Do you know what I mean? I just want.
Yeah, it wasn't that. It was just that like I am really interested in what's happening in. Like we followed Irish politics for a long time, but now like for a long time. But it's been a long time. It's been like fucking 3 years. But like. I mean, we've followed it before, but like, we've been recording these podcasts, and there's like there was hours of us out there talking about it. But it's really this year, like especially the tail end of this year, has been so strange.
Yeah,
like the rise of the far right and this weird, like we're kind of zeroing in on it, like more and more each episode, because there's more and more articles and examples and more time to think about it. But like, do you know the way that like I have it written down here to talk about later on, but like, so you have something like the hotel being burned down, okay?
Yeah.
Or the Dublin riots or anything like this. And so you have these far-right agitators who are racist and violent, and then you have a media going like, oh, I hate the violence, but I do like the racism. We have to talk about the racism because it's important to talk about it,
Yeah.
And then you have the far-right guys going like, I put a clip of this in the last video as well. I'll have to send it over to you. I found a new weirdo on YouTube, and he's just this man down... Doesn't specify where he's from, but he like at the end of one of the videos he held up his bare hands and he's like, the dirt in my hands, and I'm a hard working man working off of the soil, you know. And I was just, but so it's like a 14-minute video of him talking about so apparently he's in the car, something comes on RT Radio 1,
okay,
and it enrages him. And then he decides, I'm going to get home and talk about this. So he gets into his kitchen and he turns on his phone and he just starts like letting loose.
Yeah, yeah.
And all of his stuff is like a stream of consciousness, which is like the show was, and they invited on this housing activist. And they didn't care about the Irish at all. The presenter asked her, do you care about the Irish? And she said no. And I was like, I'm pretty sure that didn't happen.
She said, fuck them.
Yeah. Actually, I'll have to send you that little clip in particular. But he then like starts describing Dublin. And like, he could be in like rural Dublin, like as in,
Country
like
people describing Dublin is just
so funny.
It's always just like, it's like Mad Max. It might as well be like the end of Fallout 3, just a nuclear wasteland.
No, what he says is, he goes, and Dublin City has been taken over by Chinese gangs.
Chinese?
Chinese. And then he goes, and you go into the cafe. Yeah. But he was like saying, he talked about going into a cafe and seeing a bunch of Chinese lads standing around. And he's like, and nobody told them that you can't do that sort of carry on. There used to be laws about loitering, but I guess now there's not. Now that's out the window.
Yeah.
And, but then like one of the things that he said, he goes like, and there's a particular type of person. It's mainly like female, possibly Irish, possibly native. I don't know. And they hate white Irish men. They hate us with a passion. And so one of those people could be like, so I suppose the sort of person be Roderick O'Gorman. I was like, that's not a woman, but whatever.
Yeah.
And then he like continues on, but at one point he goes, he's like, these woke lefties like Helen McEntee and Drew Harris. Drew Harris, the woke lefty. And I was just like, anyway, I've just really gotten interested in him. And this all leads back into just like, nothing means anything anymore. Like, I was like looking at him and I was like, this guy thinks that fucking Drew Harris is like left wing.
Yeah.
Like he's a woke lefty. And then like, he's just sitting there in his kitchen, just like spouting off the top of his head. And I was like, well, that's like you. You're like sitting in your kitchen on a podcast, spouting off the top of your head. Like, hopefully a little bit more informed. But like, when we started talking
I
about...
do get that fear too. Sometimes I see something like that and I'm like, are we like that? You know what I mean? Like when we're giving out about Drew Harris, are we like the guy who's like, he's too woke?
Yeah.
When we call him...
So like...
Go on.
No, I was just going to say like then it made me very concerned about how I defined left and right wing. And I was like, I want to be absolutely crystal clear in my positions. And I don't want to feel like a fucking yokel on some of the most basic concepts. So what I basically looked it up on Wikipedia. And just to get like the broad definitions, to just be like, here's what it is. And basically what I was having difficulty avoiding is that I was like, I don't want to just be like left wing good, right wing bad. But then when I looked up the definitions, I still felt like left wing good, right wing bad. Yeah. But like the thing that I recorded and then deleted for some reason, even though I think it's the most crucial part of it, because we talked about like, how the journalists in Ireland perceive themselves as left wing, and maybe like culturally they might be slightly more progressive than like the average conservative voice that they allow on there, like fucking Dave Quinn. But ultimately, like when it comes to like war, or it comes to the economy, or it comes to stuff like this, they just kind of accept the most orthodox line on it. I was basically just trying to be like, what is the difference between left and right, and the kind of orthodoxy that they apply to? But like one of the things that I wanted to get at was the definition of politics itself, the distribution of resources. Okay. Like how you decide. We all come together in a big community and put our shit into a pot. Some of us have more than others, and then they put in more, and then it gets dispersed to, like, I don't know, make fucking hospitals and libraries and whatever the hell, stuff, in theory, in this kind of very simplistic, like, one person, one vote, and our public representatives go in there and obviously work in our interest as opposed to, like, some other lobby. But anyway, the point is, if you think about like left and right through the distribution of resources, which I think would be the kind of, I don't know, at the heart of a lot of the problems that we're having at the moment, which is the unfair distribution of money and resources just being either funneled to the top or deliberately throttled to try and increase the profits of somebody else. Then, like, if you're not even addressing that, then you're not going to be able to explain what's happening. And that's why most of the journalists aren't able to explain what's happening, but yet they still feel so entitled and angry. And they're like, it's actually the public's fault for being just ignorant and racist and going to, like, anyway, that sounds like I'm just defending some of the anti-migrant sentiment, or maybe it wasn't. But like, what happens is, it's just, I'm saying that, like, they have done such a disservice to disseminate information and create kind of an informed public who is thinking about things in the broadest terms.
Yeah.
And then they're dealing with what they've created, and they're just like, oh, how could they be so stupid? How could they be so ignorant? How could they not know anything? And it's like, you don't know anything.
I know.
And you've done this.
It is sort of like how we were talking, say, about Peter Casey.
Yeah.
And like when he ran for president, the media were like loving reporting on it.
Yes.
And then they give him loads of publicity, and then they're like, why are people so in love with Peter Casey? What's wrong with this country? And it's like, well, you were directly contributing to that. You know,
but like,
having your cake and eating it.
I was going to say, they have their cake and eat it, because at the same time, they also believe exactly what Peter Casey says. They just find him entirely uncouth, you know?
Yeah.
Like, there's a story of George Hook. He lived on Kill Avenue, would you believe, right across from our old alma mater.
Yeah.
And a traveller family put a caravan out in some, like, spare patch of grass out there.
Yeah.
And he fucking attached it to his, like, BMW and drove it out to the side of the motorway.
Yeah,
Do you know?
yeah. I know.
But it's just... it's just like all these people, they're like, wow, this kind of like heightened rhetoric, and like people are very pissed off, and like they don't know what to do, and like, but also we need to listen and address all of their concerns. And it's like, fuck, man, we are just so far away from solving any of these problems because you people are just like, I don't know, just so ignorant and so like uncurious.
I mean,
you know?
I think it's as basic as like 99% of journalists are middle class.
Yeah.
So like they've no real interest in changing anything, because I don't know, if you're middle class in this country, things like it's grand. Most stuff is fine, and then I mean, it's like why the tone of the housing crisis stuff has changed recently, because it's like suddenly middle class people are being affected by the housing crisis, you know? So I think that's when you're talking about like redistributing resources or like running as a state, they're just like, what they'd like to get back to is when middle class people can have a house, you know what I mean? Like that's their level. They just want to get back to normal. They don't want to get to like a more progressive state, you know what I mean?
Yeah, I mean, I also think, I mean, I'll have to do more research on this, because there was an article that we dropped in the chat, and it was about that the IMF was saying something like, Ireland needs to get rid of rent controls. And you're like, what rent controls? What are you talking about? And then I started to try and read the rest of the article, and it was like, but they do understand the need to waive a 5%. I was like, okay, I'm done with this. I'm checked out. But because like, you know, I guess growing up, if I looked at my dad would be reading the papers and keeping himself informed about all this type of stuff. And I thought, one day I'm going to get there.
Yeah.
But like, at the moment, that's not going to happen. And the reason is because the stuff that they're talking about, I do not have a stake in it at all. You know, they're talking about like, oh no, the middle class are going to be hard hit because anybody earning over like 50K is going to be given this tax. It's like, okay, well, that's not an issue for me. Yeah. And then they're like, and mortgage holders are going to say, okay, cool, not an issue for me. I don't give a shit, you know. And so, yeah, I guess it's, we were talking about, this is 8 weeks ago now, but I just recently edited up. I'm starting to get some videos together for the socials.
Yeah, they're really good.
I'm quite happy with it. The last one was good. There's two little nuggets with that one I have to tell you about. But I I decided I was like one of the other clips that we did was the when we read out the story of Migsy.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Um,
R.I.P. Mixie.
I don't know how that one's
They
going to
found
work
him
because it's
dead
mostly
recently. In a ditch. In their ditch. Yeah.
and he had like you know, I don't know, fucking the handprint of small business owners wrapped around, you know, around his
Yeah,
throat,
yeah,
you
yeah.
know?
He had a swastika. Do you see the Russian army were putting swastikas into Ukrainians' heads?
Really?
Yeah, soldiers.
Fuck.
But it's funny to think. It's funny to think that the Russians were just like watching Inglourious Bastards. They were like,
Yeah.
"That's cool. Let's do that."
Yeah. But yeah, you said something at the in that episode where you go, they keep centering the voices of all the shop owners who had their windows
Yeah,
kicked in
yeah.
instead of the people who were the target of a fucking race riot.
Yeah,
You know?
yeah.
And then I was suddenly thinking like, well, maybe the reason that they can only talk to shop owners is because they only know shop owners. Like, they wouldn't be able to get in touch with somebody in a migrant society or be able to wrap their heads around that because
Yeah.
like, they just don't give a shit.
I think
and they
it's
don't
like-
know them.
Yeah,
They don't want to know.
Well, as well, the language of all this is changing, and I think they would think like, who are the stakeholders in society? You know,
Yeah,
or the,
I hate that word.
And then I do too, but it's like
Yeah.
stakeholder is very similar to shareholder. You know,
Yeah.
so they're like, well, the migrants, they're not stakeholders; they're just here. Whereas the shop owner, he has invested and he has a stake in the country. So we'll
Yeah.
go talk to him. I think it's just, it all feeds back to the language of like, you know, investment and like running the
Yeah.
state like a company, you know?
Yeah.
So they're like, we'll talk to the guy who runs one of the O'Carrolls on Henry Street because he's
Yeah.
a stakeholder. And we, you know, that's important to get their perspective. Whereas poor old Migsy from the Congolese Migsy, you know, he's not getting the look in.
But have you seen the new Stephen's Green that we're going to get?
Yeah, I'm very disappointed in that.
That's what I was going to say. I was just kind of thinking about how, like, these guys are like, you know, we're talking about the riots and the voice of the kind of people who don't feel like they're listened to. And then they're like, they're destroying their own city. And then it was like, you don't really need any help destroying the city with somebody like Dublin City Council.
Yeah,
You know,
yeah.
because like, you know, with the whitewater rafting that I don't think is going to happen anymore.
Yeah, that was the old Owen Keegan he's like CEO
Yeah,
of
he's
Dublin
on the
City
way out.
Council. And he was just
Yeah.
obsessed with getting this whitewater rafting site in.
Yeah.
And do you remember like all the excuses? He was like, "I'd be good for tourism," and then people were like, "I don't know if it would." And then he's like, "The fire department could use it for training."
Yeah.
It's like, I don't know if they need to.
I had a very apparently they might, but also like I just feel like maybe in the city centre as a community amenity, it's like that's not really top priority of like does it benefit? Like,
Yeah.
But like I at the time, like I have this fucking horrible sickness where I need to feel like I've been even-handed. Okay.
Okay.
I really I have a very you know, like Navarra Media. Like I listen to like all of their fucking shit for my sins.
Yeah.
right? And I didn't like they get a lot of flack online in the circles that I'm in, the kind of Irish left-wing circles who are kind of a bit more down the irony spectrum, do you know?
Yeah.
But they really don't like Navarra Media, and it's easy to see why. Because in some instances, because they'll come out with things and you'll be like, Jesus fucking Christ, you know, this is embarrassing. But as a person who's like, you know, Michael Walker will be on talking about like Ukraine or Palestine or whatever, and he will just give like one example that I was pretty interesting is remember when Shireen Abu Akleh was murdered by the IDF in like, I don't know, 2021 or 2022.
Yeah.
I think it was last year, 2022. And so they were bringing her coffin down the street to, like, you know, have a funeral.
Yeah.
And the IDF then came in and started like knocking over the fucking casket. And so the type of journalist that like Michael Walker is trying to be, he has an amazing podcast as well called I wish I could remember the name. But basically what he does, he like breaks down things. He would just be like, let's just get to the heart of the matter. Like, pretend I'm a complete idiot and I'll just try and tackle it from both sides, get the information and see what conclusion I come to, given that my politics are like left leaning.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
And it can prove incredibly informative. But like I say, it leads to some very obvious questions being asked and then people getting like really annoyed by it. So he's interviewing this guy and he's saying, so like when they're taking her coffin through the street and the IDF start like trying to knock over the coffin, like, you're like, what's Israel hoping to achieve on the world stage by doing something like that? And this guy is fucking livid. He goes, what do they hope to achieve by doing anything? What's the point of them doing anything?
Yeah.
Like, it was just like, there's no game plan. Don't be like, you know, say like, well, interesting. What's their motivation? There's no motivation. They just fucking hate Palestinians. That's it. But anyway, it's all that to say that I was trying to be even-handed about, what was the thing?
I don't think we need to be even-handed. I think that's...
No, but even-handed about the whitewater rafting. I was like, I'll listen to both sides of the debate. So the Journal had a podcast where they interviewed, like, it's Journal Explainer. We talked to two sides of the debate. And I used to listen to that for a while. And then one time they got on Matthew Iglesias to talk about, like, America and Joe Biden. I was like, oh, I can immediately dismiss... Like, it's just... That's their brain. Their brain is like, you know... Let's get the experts in and hash it out. There's no kind of idea that maybe the experts have a bias.
Yeah,
already,
exactly.
You know?
They're like the experts on new trucks. They know the most.
The Ligers never get back to the whitewater rafting podcast. Basically, one side of the recorded debate was, we're getting rid of the Countess Markovit's swimming pool in the city centre and replacing it with nothing. Why don't we make a public swimming facility with input from locals instead of making vanity project for the Dublin city executive who called groups providing tents to the homeless? Quote, virtue signalers. Then the other side of the debate would say I do whitewater rafting competitively and it would be nice to not have to travel so far. A lot to mull over.
There's an interesting thing about the Journal where, you know, Shameen, the journalist,
Yes, yeah. I brought that up. I have that here as well.
No, I brought it up.
Oh, sorry.
And she goes, she put out a tweet and she goes, when I wrote about this 2 years ago, there's no guard operation, no media outlet reached out to ask for more. But it's all about Noteworthy. They published an article about a Garda operation under review. And 62 migrant children are missing after disappearing from state care, said Minister for Children, Roderick Gorman. Following a publication of our investigation by Trish Devlin yesterday. And her point is that, Shamim's point is that basically she published something about this 2 years ago and nothing came of it. And now Noteworthy are putting something now and they're not crediting Shamim.
Yeah. Or like, you know, the fact that now Roderick O'Gorman addresses it. It'd be like, and now he's forced to address it, and now it's proper that he address it because an actual media outlet, as opposed to like, the facts are the exact same.
Yeah.
And the research is the exact same. But for some reason, one warrants legitimacy and the other one doesn't.
Yeah. And one of her points, and I would agree with this, I mean, first of all, it's like, yeah, the Dublin Inquirer is less influential. But then she also says, you know, she's not Irish. And that it's like now that an Irish journalist is writing about her. And I think there's something to that. Where it's
there's completely something to that.
Because it's like, Irish people hate when foreign people point out something bad about Ireland. You know what I mean?
It's big time. Yeah,
and, like, they really hate it. And then it's like it's one way to get an Irish person to defend anything is just get a foreign person to criticise it.
Sweden goes, actually, we do this with housing. Yeah, you do that with housing? Yeah, it couldn't work here. Fuck off.
Yeah, we like living on the street.
But like, with that thing, I listened to a podcast. It was one of the Tortoise Shack podcasts, and they had Shamim on.
Yeah.
And she was talking about the story. And it's just funny because you're just like, you hear that story and you're like, wow, that's terrible. I'm really guilty now in this instance. But I heard that. And then I was like, but surely other people would be talking about it. If like 62 kids just went missing and the state was like, oh yeah, I don't know what happened there.
Yeah.
You're like, what do you mean you don't know where 62 fucking kids are? Who are just like from other countries.
Yeah.
Who may not even speak English. Have just vanished. You're just saying like they're gone.
Yeah.
And they're just like, so I was like, so now 2 years later, when the journal talks about it and Roger O'Gorman is like tugging his collar and he has to say something, and then suddenly I'm like, oh yeah, that happened. And I knew about this 2 years ago. But then about like a few hours after listening to it, I just forgot about it because it didn't feel real.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
It's like, even though it completely warrants everybody getting like completely going mad about it. Like, it's, I don't know, it's crazy to me. It's crazy.
I know, it's funny how you can just, like, there have been other stories like that where, yeah, you hear about it and you're like, why isn't everyone talking about this? And then
Yeah.
it's sort of like you don't have an emotional response to it because it's so mad. And then you're like, well, everyone would be talking about it if it was real. So it mustn't be real. It's sort of like there's sometimes you see stuff published about this in like a orphanage in Northern Ireland, Kilcolgan, I think it's called, Kilorgan, something like that. And basically, they loads of high-ranking Northern Irish people turned up to like abuse kids, basically, in the orphanage. And again, it just doesn't feel. You never hear anyone talking about it.
No.
But it should be like this massive story. But I think because it's just not the right people reporting on it or the wrong people implicated, it just doesn't feel real, you know?
Yeah. But like all of this stuff is like breaking down as well because of the kind of lecturing tone of mainstream media where they like want to be, I don't know, like they're just kind of giving out to you for not buying a fucking paper. Like, you know, the public are stupid, beady-eyed, fucking ignoramuses who are just getting worse and don't understand how great things are, and they won't even buy a fucking paper so they can continue to write about it. Come on, man. Like, so you have people like citizen journalists, because that's also what Catherine Corliss was, who uncovered the Tune babies. Just somebody who's like, this is something that I've noticed and I'm going to investigate.
Yeah.
And it's like, they're stories and they're real and all these things are happening. But yeah, like, they not only do the media believe their own bullshit, like it's infectious. I start to believe their bullshit, where it's like, unless they say it happened, it doesn't fucking exist. Even though it did exist, it happened. Do you know?
Yeah. Like another one is the and we've talked about it loads of times, but just the mother and child homes report and how like people were getting their testimony back and it's completely different to what they said.
Yeah.
All that sort of stuff. Like that doesn't get talked about a lot. You know what I mean?
No.
Like it's just that same thing of I don't know.
No, it's I don't know. I mean, it also is comparable to, it's something I wanted to talk about with Israel actually as well, where like some of the stuff that the Israelis are doing is like so absurdly depraved and inhuman that my mind like rejects it. Like even reading about it creates some sort of trauma response. And like sometimes I think, oh shit, I forgot to say this on the podcast. And I'm like, should I say this on a fucking comedy or like comedy adjacent podcast? You know? But some of the stuff, I have it like written down here, some of these things where I was like,
yeah, they made them watch the Two Johnnies.
oh, it's so good. That's getting clipped.
That is going on the t-shirt.
But it's like, we talked about how when the Holocaust happened, it was like the Ford model being used to just speed up genocide and make it like an automated factory of genocide.
Yeah.
Whereas now, like, it's the tech startup sort of genocide.
Yeah.
But it's also like there are people who presumably are in rooms in Israel, and they walk around in their bare feet. Maybe they wash them in the toilet like Steve Jobs does. You know? And they have like a big bowl of M&Ms, and then we're gonna do a brainstorming session. You know, like there's no bad ideas here. Let's just try and figure it out. And all of it is in aid of making Palestinians' lives worse. Okay.
Yeah.
And they just come up with something, and you just go, "Fuck, man! I did not know that you could be like that. Like you could do that." You know?
Yeah.
Like so, the one that really stuck out to me. There's like tunnels underneath Gaza, obviously, for Hamas to operate, and I don't know. I mean, if you're under occupation and you need to get in like resources, like as well as them being like used by militant groups by Hamas, they also seem to be a necessary part of being able to survive in Gaza because you need to have access to. Yeah, exactly. So, have you heard about this? At UN Human Rights says, Israel is flooding tunnels with salt water, okay?
Right.
And the idea of flooding the tunnels with salt water is like you not only you kill Hamas, you salt the earth so nothing can ever grow again. Like this land cannot be used.
Right, okay.
Did you have to salt the earth so nothing would ever grow again?
Yeah.
And I was just like, that's like I was just again like the Zuckerberg type guy sitting in the room going like, okay. Like, how do we use these tunnels? This is great. This is like an infrastructure that goes under the whole place. Can we do it with uranium? No. We can't do it with uranium because, you know, that could like the wind could bleed it back over. We could have like some fallout over in Tel Aviv. I don't know. It's like, okay, what about this? What about we put salt water in there? And I was like, but we won't be able to live there. That doesn't matter because we will just create this fucking like flat, uninhabitable desert.
Yeah.
Where we just kill Arabs and that's it. Like, that's fine.
And like it's worth saying as well, like it's not just these like the nerds aren't just in Israeli rooms. They're like it's like startups in America and in Europe are like all this stuff is like a testing ground for a lot of military technology. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like when they're flooding, like anything they do in Palestine, it's like there's a lot of people watching to be like, let's see how this plays out.
Yeah, exactly.
Or like,
yeah.
Or even like, maybe they're suggesting stuff for the Israelis to do because they're like, we want to see how this works. You know?
Yeah.
Like it's really is just a experimental playground for military technology at this point.
Yeah. And that's the truest startup of all, isn't it? Where it's just like they're doing a big, massive tech startup of like war crimes.
Yeah.
But yeah, this one I wanted to show you as well. Where like so this picture, James can see it, you can't. Ite Apstein tweets out Harry Zahav anyway. Golden Mountains, a settlement development enterprises advertising for Gaza settlements. Quote, a house on the beach is not a dream. We have begun clearing rubble and fending off squatters. And it's a picture of literally like a bombed out Gaza. And then they're like, and here's where the veranda would be for your, like, your semi-detached or whatever. It's just, it's like, I kind of just can't wrap my head around it, and I don't know how to. Like I don't really know how these people can be. Again, I can't articulate it. The mind rejects the type of person like when
it is fascism. Like it's like so unbelievably plain and simple. You know what I mean? Like it's just the government are just like creating as much hate to stop Israelis like thinking. They're like, we're trying to get them so angry that they're no longer thinking, and then completely demonize these people. And like it's getting to the point as well where they're like, because like one of the elements of fascism is this idea of like, the individual is completely subservient to the overall goal. You know what I mean? And it's like they're just, you read so many things about like IDF soldiers, like say they're all the Israeli hostages taken, and then the Israeli government were like, we're just going to continue the bombing campaign even if it means the hostages are going to die, you know?
Yeah.
Or like soldiers died, or like there's just been so much friendly fire, or soldiers been caught in bombs, you know what I mean? It's like these people, nothing matters apart from like expanding
like,
Israel.
This would bring into the one of the big stories that we had to touch, which is that 3 Israelis were like shot by the IDF. So did you you seen the story where like so 3 of them are like shirtless. They've turned one of their shirts into a makeshift like surrender flag, or like a white flag just to wave around, okay?
Yeah.
And the IDF just lit them up, okay?
Yeah.
And then one of them managed to survive and was running away. They chased him down and he was pleading for his life in Hebrew, and they just shot him again and killed him.
Yeah.
And it's like, so some of the responses to this by hardcore Zionists have been like, this is the insidious nature of Hamas. Because of their guerrilla tactics, it means that the IDF don't know who is Hamas and who is like a civilian.
Yeah.
And it's like, they were shirtless, waving a fucking surrender flag, and you have somebody from a distance mowing them down and then running up to them while they're on the ground and continuing to shoot them.
Yeah.
Like,
and like the traditional like Western way of getting on would be like, you would maybe get the person and then figure it out. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Whereas because it's like this sort of fascist impulse, it's like, no, just kill them, because it doesn't matter. Like, they're just an individual.
That was another thing, actually. There was a bulldozer that ran over a refugee camp and just killed a bunch of people. And they were trying to create more illegal settlements. And it harkened back to... let me just try and find that lady. There was a lady back in...
Having a look at Garrett's search history now.
Fuck! Yeah, no. What was it? Was there anything bad?
Yeah, it said porn hand-holding.
No, I don't watch it.
Yeah.
I don't watch porn. I don't. What was her? I think she was a journalist. Do you remember this from like 2018 or 2017 or something? Rachel Corrie. Okay, so Rachel Corrie was an American activist and diarist, as it says on Wikipedia, and a member of the Pro-Palestine International. Maybe I should read the rest of it before. Pro-Palestine International Solidarity Movement. Anyway, she was run over and killed by a bulldozer, and it became a meme in Israel that they would eat pancakes to her and kind of tag her, Rachel Corrie, on, you know, like, that's
horrific.
That's what we're talking about. Like, you know, and so that was one thing that happened there, but I wanted to say, the 3 Israelis that were shot down. Oh yeah, you were saying like, yeah, it's sadistic and it's fascistic, and they've dehumanized these people, that they don't give a shit or they don't care.
But what
like,
I'm saying as well is that they don't care about Israelis at this point.
Yeah.
You know?
No, that's also true. But like, I was also just going to point out that they're like American cops insofar as, you know, definitely they see them as subhuman and they want to get rid of them. But they're also like so fucking terrified that they're so inept. It's just like, just keep firing.
Yeah.
I don't want these people near me. If they touch me, I'm dead. If they touch me, I'm dead. You know, like what you're seeing is not even an undisciplined army, but like people who are fucking terrified and should not be handed a gun. And yeah.
I mean, there was that story about the IDF soldiers who like jumped in the tank, and they never like worked the tank really before, and they just got in one and just like started shooting this kibbutz, and they were like hailed as heroes. But I think there was a lot of like friendly fire, and it was just like 3 soldiers commandeered a tank and laid waste to this area. It's like, It's not really how an army should work.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Shouldn't
Kinda-
just be like Grand Theft Auto where you...
Yeah.
It's like, deadly, a tank. Time to unleash the carnage.
Yeah, just playing like trying to think of some song like in Grand Theft Auto that's famous.
Yeah, Ace of Spades.
Is that in Grand Theft Auto? What's the one, the horse with no name? Okay.
It's in a video game.
But yes. Oh, fuck.
What about horse with no dick?
Yeah, went through the desert on a horse with no
These-
dick.
Yeah.
I couldn't suck it. I couldn't suck
I
anything.
couldn't suck it. And then also these days, you can make a sort of a PC gone mad. You know what I mean?
I can't remember what I was gonna say.
These
But
days, even the horses have no dick.
yeah, you know that thing in Red Dead Redemption where it's like the horse's balls shrink in cold weather. Can't do
Yeah.
that now. They'd make you take
Not
out the
anymore.
balls.
Yeah.
You know. But I want to
yeah.
stop them. Do you know where they so this thing has kind of hit Israel in a big way. Like people are out in the streets protesting because
Yeah.
three Israelis have died. Like, you know, there's a guy who's Zainab Hait, who's an Egyptian satirist who sold out the people during the Arab Spring, as far as she's concerned. I think maybe I need to get that right. But either way, he still had a pretty viral. And again, insane to say this, but if you want any sort of like informed analysis of what's going on in Israel, then you actually Piers Morgan. You could do worse. Like
What the fuck is going on?
I know it's
like
it's madness. It's so
like
insane.
he's not
to me.
he's not this like paragon of, you know, he's not suddenly done about turn and become like a leftist, but
Yeah.
he is better than a lot of people. Like it's so weird.
It's crazy to me. Like a big part of the reason, and we've mentioned it before, that he's better than most people is that he just lets them talk, and he also
Yeah.
knows what they're talking about. That's like
Yeah.
half of the thing. You know, where like the Sky journalists like Kay Burley will just be sitting there nodding along, and the IDF will be like, you know, actually, the hospital always looked that way. It always looked blown up. And she's
Yeah,
like, yeah. Whereas, like, I swear to God, Alan Dershowitz and Norman Finkelstein were on Piers Morgan. Insane if you know anything about that. Where, like,
Yeah.
Norman Finkelstein basically very publicly got into a confrontation with Alan Dershowitz on Democracy Now!, where he just gave out about Dershowitz's shitty book. And as a result of doing this, Dershowitz got him denied tenure at the university that he worked at. And the other thing that he did is he planted stories throughout the media to say that Finkelstein's mother was a Nazi collaborator. Finkelstein's mother, who survived the camps. Okay.
Yeah.
And like they didn't speak for ages. I mean, like, they weren't like friends or anything. But there's an amazing bit of footage where Finkelstein meets Dershowitz in a restaurant, like 4 years later, just happens to bump into him, and he goes, "Do you have any idea how difficult it is for me to not jump across the table and throttle you? You said that my mother helped the Nazis." And he's just like, it's just so funny. So like Dershowitz is on there with Finkelstein, and it's wild because Finkelstein is just sitting there like calmly listening to all of the bullshit that's pouring out of Dershowitz's mouth, you know? So
Yeah.
Dershowitz is like, he's saying like, one of the things I found funny was when he goes, like Japan and Germany and all these places resisted the Allies, but when they overthrew those fascist rulers, eventually Japan and the Germans thanked the Allies. And I was like, what about our present day makes you think that the Nazis lost? Okay. like most of the Nazis ended up just working on like the American space program, or, you know, effortlessly
setting up NATO.
Yeah, exactly. And like now somehow like Russia, you know, was years in the cold, and the Germans are at the head of the table again. And now, yeah,
like Russia won World War II.
Yeah, exactly.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I'm not saying the Soviet Union was good.
You can say it was good. You can say it was good.
I don't think I would think it's good.
I don't know. I haven't done enough research. All I know is that, like, there's always these things of, like, there's a lot of things that happen in the Soviet Union that I've heard about where it's like, isn't this terrible? And then you go, well, like, I could find about 1 million parallels in a capitalist society where something like
the
this
capitalist
happens.
society isn't good either.
That's what I mean. Yeah, like, they're both bad, but it's just like, why is one, like, so bad it doesn't even bother? We don't even need to think about it. Whereas one is like, flawed, we can fix it.
Well, I don't think,
Yeah, okay, yeah. But Norman Finkelstein, so Alan Dershowitz, one of the things he says on there, he goes like, we all want peace. Obviously, we don't. But then he goes, and everybody wants a 2-state solution. And then fucking Piers Morgan says, no, that's not true. Like, Israeli diplomats, the Israeli ambassador in the UK, and plenty of people within Netanyahu's cabinet have said that a 2-state solution is not happening. It is never going to happen. Okay?
Yeah.
And then he goes, oh, well, they're wrong. He's like, most people in Israel want a 2-state solution. It's like, what the fuck are you talking about? By what metric? Where are you getting your information from?
Yeah.
But, like, some of the stuff that is, so we had on, like, BBC or Sky News or whatever, and I was talking about the Egyptian satirist who was also on, I can't remember his name,
Bassem Youssef,
but he was also on Piers Morgan, and the one thing he was like, we just need to figure out, like, what's the conversion rate.
The thing is, the question is, what is a proportionate response? Because it has been different from one tier to another. So if you look to this graph, for example, this is the death of Israeli and Palestinians, and it's changing from 1 year to year. It's like fluctuating like crypto. So my question is today, what is the going rate today for human lives? I mean, 2014 was a great year for Ben Shapiro. 88 Israelis were died, and there was 2,329 Palestinians killed on the other side. That is 1 Israeli for 27 Palestinians. That is a very good exchange rate. What I'm saying is, what is the exchange rate for today? You guys will be happy.
He's just saying, like, how much is a Palestinian life worth versus an Israeli? And he's being, like, facetious in a kind of funny way to be like, just tell me the conversion rate now. Like, I just want to know, like, how many Israelis is worth 1 Palestinian, or or how many, the other way around, more likely. And that kind of came to a head now, because it's like 3 Israelis dead, and it was like, fucking hell, what are they doing over there? We need to stop the presses. Let's go interview some people and try and figure out, like, this disproportionate response from the IDF. And it was like, you hear these, like, it's just crazy. It's so they're in, like, Tel Aviv, and there's, like, huge protests, and everybody's out in the streets, and they're like, we need negotiations to start, like, fucking yesterday. Get all the hostages back, okay? And then they're going like, so what do you think about the overall conflict? Like, how do you see that playing out once the the releases have been negotiated? And then all of a sudden they become really cagey. Like that's, let's figure out how we get the hostages back, and then we can figure out what we're going to do about that messy business with the conflict. Like, they have this weird thing where they literally are like, I want every Israeli back here and alive, and then we just continue doing what we're doing. Like, that's the majority of the people at that protest. That is what they fucking believe,
Yeah.
And it's crazy. It's just like, it's portrayed in like, this keeps getting repeated a lot. It was repeated by Dershowitz. It was repeated by many people who were interviewed on this demonstration. They go, we all want peace. And it's like, no, you don't. You don't want peace. You have never wanted peace. Otherwise, you wouldn't fucking live in Israel.
Yeah.
Anyway. What time are we at?
It's just about an hour.
Okay, cool. That was handy.
I might go make a cup of tea.
Yeah, that sounds good. There's one thing I want to play. I want to play some clips.
Okay.
When we get back after the no.
Okay.
Pretty much talked about all the Israeli stuff except for. Well, there's 2. Okay, I'll just wrap up my Israeli stuff that I have here. Okay.
Okay.
One is that Stephen Fry has always been like, like, he's kind of a Christopher Hitchens new atheist type thing, isn't he? Where he's always talking about how, like, he rejects God, and he was having an argument with Gay Byrne about whether God existed or etc. And now I for real thought that he was, like, Christian or Catholic, okay? And I found out he's
Yeah.
actually Jewish. And now he's like, because of the rise in anti-Semitism, I'm decided to like go back to my Jewish heritage and like investigate that a bit more. It's like, now? Really? Do you know what I mean? Like all of your years of saying like, fuck God obviously doesn't exist. And now in this moment, why have you chosen in this particular moment to be like, you know what? There might be something to this. Let's investigate it some more.
That's mad. Stephen Fry, yeah, he's such a... I mean, he's the ultimate liberal, do you know what I mean?
That was about, like, this one is a return of our favourite character, one of our favourite characters. But, like, Deirdre Conroy, do you remember her? Running in the Dublin Bay South by-election. Against Bridget Purcell. And
Yes,
all the Deirdres. Well, Fianna Fáil has so many Deirdres, do you remember?
Yes, I do.
Yeah.
I know
So
that
anyway,
bit.
apparently there was some meeting, there was some like dinner at the US ambassador's residence, and she showed up to it, and along with a bunch of like rural independents and all these fucking pricks. Now like the protest was like, you shouldn't be talking to the Americans at all because they're complicit in genocide. Fine, correct, I agree. But also like, as far as I'm aware, it wasn't explicitly, we're raising money for the IDF and we just wanted you to hear us out. It was just like, you know, some fucking like councillor from Dublin Bay South gets invited to have a free dinner with the Americans, and it's just like, gosh, golly gee, I'm going to be like all my heroes, Leo Varadkar, Micheál Martin, and fucking Bertie Ahern with their bowl of shamrocks. You know what I mean? Like, that's the vibe that you get off of it. But anyway, I just found this very funny because she was pictured in a car being driven. So this is a picture of her here, okay? Being driven.
Like a ghoul.
I know. Somebody just like screaming at her, just going, "Why the fuck are you here? What's your problem? You support this," and you know, and correctly. I don't want to sound like I'm surprised. So she is in the back of a car being driven to this place, okay? And then somebody just emailed her and going like, "Why the fuck were you there?" And she responds, "Strange to have this email. I have definitely not been in the U.S. ambassador residence on Tuesday. Leave me alone as a serious Irish worker for Dublin City Council residents." Okay.
Yeah.
And then like
said from my iPad it says.
And then later on there was like another thing that she said where she was like, she said, she wasn't driven there.
She was driving her own car.
I just fucking, you know what?
I think we better issue an apology.
Deirdre, come on the show.
Yeah.
Let's squash this beef. Okay?
What would it be like if she came on the show? Like, how would that go down? Be so weird, wouldn't it? Is Leo Varadkar really gay?
Well, she's in Fianna Fáil,
but she still met him. She would know.
Okay, yeah, that's true. That's true.
They're in government together.
They're not. Well, she's in. Anyway, it doesn't matter. Katie Delaney dropped by her TV agents for supporting Palestine.
Okay, yeah. Oh, yeah. This is super. Who's Katie Delaney?
Do you know that one? Do you remember that? Like, she wrote on Rick and Morty, but she's the one who has that like video of like where she's like pretending she's in the studio. I don't know what rapper is performing, but like it's like, you know, turn the fucking mics on, and it's like, it's on.
Yeah.
Yes, I love that.
Yeah, that's a fantastic video.
So yeah.
I come up with a joke when Elon Musk and Grimes were going out.
Yeah.
And I call them Thick and Shorty. It's funny,
Okay.
isn't it? And I mean thick in the Irish, like he's stupid.
Okay.
She's short.
Yeah. Because I was just thinking of some babe, you know?
Yeah.
Who's thick?
Like, who's the shorty? Who's this thick shorty?
Yeah. That's what I love. A short Puerto Rican lady with a big ass.
Yeah.
The drugs are hidden in. The drugs are hidden in.
Yeah, blame the drugs.
That's what me and Zaynab, we love that in the heat.
Why'd I get mixed up with that bitch?
Because she got a great ass. And you got your head all the way up it. Jesus. When I think of asses, woman's ass, something comes out of me.
Why does he scream so much?
I don't know. Some of them are so good. I heard that like basically what like on that movie like it was Heat. So like Michael Mann's just like, yeah, just read it normal. just kind of throw that one away and then like do your own thing with it. And then like, so the first one is like, 'cause she's got a great ass and your head was all the way up in it. And then, you know, just trying to have a go at him. And then Al Pacino's like, let me just put some stank on this one. And then he goes, "Good, she had a great ass." And you just really feel like Hank Azaria's reaction is real, where he's like, Jesus. Like he looks so taken aback, like, what the fuck are you talking? You look completely insane. He's like, "Oh, sorry. When I see a great ass, I hear something just comes over me." Anyway.
Well,
that's
I'm about to have a great cup of tea.
Yeah, in my ass.
Ho ho ho. Santa Claus here. Better than a big fuck off present is the rest of this episode where the Ligers talking about what the fuck happened to Angela Nagle. More Sinn Féin posturing to racists. Another dumb fuck landlord entering local politics. Go and listen to all that and more on patreon.com/guiltycligers. Naughty or nice, I don't give a hoot. Merry Christmas.